tell us more about their business, enterprise, and how they've made it. So it's a pleasure to have you here at Lolwe TV today.
My pleasure too.
Right, so just like you've heard it, we're going to discuss, spice and dice the matters, purpose of insurance in the pandemic era. As you know, COVID-19 has ravaged world economies. It has affected people across the globe, politically, socially, and economically, that is. So, Mr. Mwangi, I don't know how COVID-19 has hit you hard in the insurance sector.
Thank you once again, Chris. Just like any other business, obviously, we have been hit very, very hard as an insurance industry. And particularly considering that we also do businesses with all manner of businesses across the country, be it in the entertainment world, be it motor vehicles in terms of public transport, and even other vehicles, hotels, schools. So when those other businesses are affected by COVID, we certainly one of the first casualties. People lost jobs, and therefore they could not continue covering their medicals, what we call WIBA, and perhaps even the monies, the wherewithal, whether they could be able to get the money to be able to pay for their premiums. So I would say in a nutshell, like any other business, perhaps not in any other bigger way than any other economy or any other industry, but we were equally affected by COVID.
Maybe you can just tell our viewer who is watching you right now, how have you managed to stay afloat?
Thank you. Obviously, as COVID came, nobody prepared for it. But there were also some wheels of economy that were still turning. For instance, the entire transport, though it was affected, in some areas, especially the long-haul vehicles that were now banned from, going in the county. The local ones were allowed, only perhaps that they were allowed to carry a few people. There were some very strategic other economic activities that were still going on. The hotels were open. And therefore, those rituals that remained essentially enabled us to be able to continue operating. And then, of course, the innovations that came with COVID. And people realized, yes, we cannot be able to access our offices, but we can still be able to work perhaps from home. So technology, I would say, was one of the reactions, and a very big one, that helped the industry to keep learning. Otherwise, it was very, very going to be very difficult.
Yeah, actually, I was coming to ask you maybe some of the lessons that you've drawn from the effect of COVID-19 pandemic, because as others say, it's a two-sided sword. It has come with the merits and demerits. There are lessons that different sectors have learned from the effect of COVID-19 pandemic. Maybe you can just walk us through a few lessons that you've drawn from the COVID-19.
I think for us is, like you said very well, is actually double-edged. We had the losses and we had the gains. And just like all we know, the losses were that we lost businesses, companies closed, our clients were not able to pay premiums on time because they didn't have perhaps jobs, and their businesses were also not doing well. So in a nutshell, I would say on that side, businesses were not doing well, so we suffered losses. But when it comes to the other side, which is positive, and this is where I think we all need to focus on now, is the lessons that we learned. One, as risk managers, because insurance, perhaps we need to inform your viewer, is that insurance is a risk mechanism economy, where we transfer your burden to ourselves, and that when you have a problem, we take it up for you. So pandemic is actually one of those risks. And I think one of the lessons that we have learned is that we must anticipate. We must anticipate some of these issues, be it pandemic. This is not the first one that has happened in the world. So we, as risk managers, as insurers, we must therefore anticipate that anything like this can happen. We must anticipate things like earthquake. We must anticipate things like terrorism. And therefore, one of the outcomes of this pandemic is that I think we are now more aligned to what can go wrong even in the future. And even as we speak now, we have actually a cover for pandemic, like COVID, for instance. That's one. The other thing that we have also learned is now the use of technology. Our businesses has been very relational, where we dependent, particularly if you look at the live agents, dependent on that I must be able to meet my client in their offices or in their premises for us to be able to transact. But now we have realized that time can come a pandemic or a calamity or tragedy that would make us not be able to meet that customer. And therefore, technology has enabled us to be able to continue meeting with our customers. For instance, as soon as the pandemic happened, the insurance industry had just launched the digital insurance certificate, the one that we put on the screen of a car. Today, you don't have to walk into any offices. We actually sending those digital certificates into our clients' phones and in their laptops and everything else. So that is critical. In terms of that, we evolved in terms of digitization. The other thing that came very clearly other than that is that we have innovated new products. Like I've just said, now we have a product for COVID, and we are also thinking now of many other covers that we can be able to do. So those are key elements of success that we have seen even during the pandemic. I think overall, I would say the other biggest one is that we now have a much more educated populace. Our insuring public are a little bit now more alert and more amenable to buying insurance products than before. Because now everybody appreciates and realizes it can get worse, and particularly when it comes to issues like medical. And today, I find a little bit of reluctance when I'm talking to people about some of these services like medical insurances than it were before COVID. Because all of a sudden, people realize, wait a minute, my savings perhaps are not enough. Even the cover that I have always purchased is not enough. I think we have now a much more educated, much more informed clientele than perhaps COVID. So I think those are critical lessons that we have learned.
Great. So in other words, would you say that COVID-19 came as a blessing in disguise for insurance company, that initially we know that people were very kind of reluctant to venture into insurance sector. If you could talk to people, they were not that willing to invest in insurance sector. Perhaps has things changed?
Well, obviously you cannot wish COVID even on your worst enemy, so we can't say really it's a blessing that it came. But I would say as eventually it did come, and there was really nothing much as human beings we could do about it. But then it has helped the human race, not only I think in our economy, but I think globally, in many aspects, in terms of understanding some of the risks that people face. When we talk about calamity, our generation, and even perhaps the generation that were ahead of us, we had never experienced. There are very few people who are alive today who are in 1918 when there was SARS pandemic. And therefore we kept on hearing, and you wondering, perhaps it's because they were in those years, but it happened in the 21st century. And therefore, I think going forward now we have much more educated, courtesy of this pandemic and the tragedy, as much as it's quite undesirable from a human perspective because of the pain and dissolution that it has brought to major families. Deaths, of course, but we are much more better in terms of information than we have ever been in my lifetime. So yes, it came and disrupted our lives, disrupted businesses, and of course we have lost a lot of lives. We can never recover. But then has also left, perhaps just shows how resolute and God-given, innate abilities as human beings to be able to rise to the occasion. And I think it has also enabled us to know that we can, get over the storm, even however difficult it is. Look at an issue like travel. Travel, the entire world, all the planes in the world, grounded. And still, when it came for the airlines to drive and come up, they are on the air now. So I think that just shows that we have the strength to overcome challenges. So I think that would be, I would say, perhaps that is the biggest outcome that I would equate COVID pandemic with, in the sense that we have become more innovative, more knowledgeable, and I think even the future generations will benefit from what we have gone through.
Right, thank you. If you just joined in, this is Business Tuesday with me, Chris OWINO, and today I'm holding court with Mr. Mwangi Anthony, or Anthony Mwangi, who is the chair of Association of Insurance Brokers Kenya. We are just trying to slice and dice matters, the role and the purpose of insurance during the pandemic era. Mr. Mwangi, they say a friend in need is a friend indeed. During this COVID-19 pandemic, Many people were affected, people lost jobs, many people lost their lives, people lost their beloved ones. I don't know how, as insurance sector, how responsive were you to your clients and the people of Kenya at large during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, thank you. That's a great question. I think like everybody else, like every other business, when COVID first of all came, we were all in denial. We were all not sure how really to respond, because first of all, we never thought, we never knew exactly what this disease is all about. And then quickly perhaps we go looking into our contracts and see, did we cover that particular risk? Because remember, it's a contract. You have to look at it. Is it covered within the terms of our contracts? And you realize pandemics by their nature ordinarily are not covered, not only in our contracts but across the globe, because nobody has the power to be able to control pandemics. And that's why when they are declared pandemics, then obviously they become uninsurable. Nonetheless, I think in a month or two or so or thereabouts, the insurance company were able to quickly figure out and say, no, this is not the time to run away from our clients. We must be able to be with them. And you remember even our own regulator, IRA, issued a statement and said, if you had not excluded pandemics in your contracts, especially on medical covers, you must pay. And therefore, quite a number of our clients have benefited from cover, even if it was not anticipated. For remember, for when we come up with issues of costing, we assume some of the risks that we can be able to cover. Nobody had costed a pandemic, but a lot of insurance companies went out of their way and catered for their customers. So that was one. On life covers, on the life side of business, because we have what we call general and life covers. Every death under life cover has been covered, and I don't think there is any insurance company that has rejected a life claim for anybody who had a life cover because of pandemic. So I would say, as an insurance fraternity, we have worked with our clients. We have become more alert. We are educating them. There are a lot of webinars and a lot of Zoom meetings in terms of educating our customers. The other thing that has also the insurance industry have also done is that we have realized there is a serious mental issue currently that is going within our society. People are locked in homes, broke, no jobs, and therefore, ultimately, and I mean, there were issues of mental, and I think it is still continuing. And I think a lot of insurance companies, like in most of the businesses, have put aside some element of training and resources to be able to deal with mental challenges, either of their own staff or some of their customers. And they have brought in professionals, perhaps in those Zoom meetings, on how to deal with mental issues that are greatly affecting a lot of our clientele. So I would say, yes, we have responded. As to whether we have to the threshold that is required, perhaps it's a walk, it's a journey that we are all making together. But I would say we have worked to a great deal with our customers. The other thing that we have also did and we have done, we realized a lot of people did not have money because it happened. For instance, COVID just came when schools were opening. You remember when it was declared, and a lot of schools were just closing, and we never cancelled our clients' policies, even when they were not able to pay. We allowed the cover to continue, and when the economy and businesses opened, we allowed them to make adjustments and arrangements of how to pay. So again, even the fact that the insurance would demand that you pay as you get your cover, we never cancelled clients' policies, unless where a client would come and say, cancel my cover. But we never went out there and cancelled people's covers because they had not paid. So that was one of the reactions and support that we could be able to give our customers. And we allowed them to continue working with the covers without cancelling them, so that even when they get back into businesses, then they will still be able to have cover. And we honored those claims even as they continue coming.
So brilliant. Mr. Mwangi, it is incontrovertibly true that we don't know when we'll flatten the curve of COVID-19. Others say it's here to stay, unless we are living in the world of denial. So we have to accept that COVID is here to stay, but of course we are optimistic and we pray that we'll flatten the curve and normalcy will resume. But should that be the situation, that COVID is here to stay, so we have to adapt, with it. We have to adapt living with the COVID-19. Maybe you can just tell us, should that be the case, which role will insurance play to help us or to salvage the people, to make sure that they stay afloat, they pay their bills, and they live a good life?
I think one of the things that obviously that we will hope and pray that everybody is going to do is, from what experts are telling us, that vaccination is a very key, important component of dealing with pandemic. Therefore, because there are very many other diseases that we still live with, AIDS, we have we have all manner of other diseases that we live with, even the viruses and other viruses. These are not the vast virus, and we live with them. But I think one of the critical things that we would want to encourage our customers, and actually Kenyan in general, is to accept vaccinations. That is going to help us a lot. And I guess, and I hope that even going forward, perhaps it may be a requirement of a cover, that for you to be able to be covered for COVID or any other such diseases, then you need to be vaccinated. So that is very, very critical. The other thing that now we know, as we grew up, we knew we were all, as children, we had this mark on our arms. We were told when we were young, we were vaccinated against all manner of diseases. I think now we understand a little bit better what vaccinations is all about. For those who are travelers, we know we all can't travel in most countries without a yellow fever card, a vaccination. And I think we were only doing it for purposes of travel. We never, internalized completely why we needed to be vaccinated against things like yellow fever in some of these countries that people visited. But so there is a much more awareness of the need to be vaccinated. So I see people now embracing vaccinations, not only for COVID, but even for other illnesses that the vaccination is all about. So it is true, we don't know, and nobody can be able to say with certainty how far, how long this pandemic will last. But I think one thing is sure is that we are adopting slightly better mechanisms of dealing with it than before. Like I've said, now COVID cover is a standard cover in any medical contract today we are signing. Unless you don't want it, is now a standard cover. It maybe have some limits. We may not be covering all the big limits that people may want, but we are now giving it as a standard cover, meaning that we are willing to work with our customers and ensure that should anything like that happen, financially they're not going to be destroyed by such an illness. So that's one response that insurance companies or insurance as an industry we are adopting on behalf of our customers.
You talked about a very important pillar in dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, that is the awareness on vaccination. The truth is that majority of Kenyans are yet to come out, and leave alone come out even to accept the fact that COVID is here and we have to get vaccinated. They are quite skeptical about the vaccines being given by the government, and this is drilling the efforts by the government to ensure that by the end of the year, at least 10 million Kenyans have already been vaccinated. Perhaps which message can you convey to people who are yet to come out and get vaccinated?
I think I have two messages that I would want to lay this morning. One, of course, is to the government. They have a very, very big role, and I think they have tried, but I think there's still some more room for really working a little bit harder and talking a little bit more, including Mashinani, to go there, down there, and really talk to people. And practically, don't go as government, go as community workers or any other people who can be able to convince people. Remember when it came, there was a connotation that this is a disease for travelers. It came from China and all these issues. And of course, what was also happening that time with the regime that was in America, fake news and all that. So there are a lot of people then internalized that this disease is not real. And remember there was also the COVID saga in terms of lost finances. So this created a lot of impression to people that could be people want to make money. That's why they are talking about vaccinations and stuff like that. And I'm not 100% sure that they have had this information. So we need to see more time spent either in the media, both electronic and print, and even in barazas. This is, I think, where now we need that chief barazas a lot, churches, mosques, all those areas that people have trust in, to be able to still send that message to Kenyans that vaccination is very important. So I appeal to government to continue putting a bit of more resources in education to our people on why vaccination is still important. Remember, it also came even with an element of discrimination. The first people who actually died, there was a lot of fear. People, we are told, some families could not even be sold merchandise in shops. They were seen like they are, kind of a pariah family. So then a lot of information obviously need to be done. Now, the second message, of course, is to my fellow Kenyans that we now have uncontroverted evidence, even from hospitals, that out of all the people particularly who are being admitted today, almost beyond 90% of the people perhaps who find themselves in HDU and ICU are those people who are not vaccinated. Obviously, there could be one or two, but the bulk of the numbers of the people who are finding themselves in hospitals, especially in HDU and ICU, are those people who are not vaccinated. Where people have taken partial or full vaccination, you see very reduced numbers. Of course, there may have one or two incidents of people who have died, just like any other disease we have in this country. We take malaria queen drugs, we take cancer drugs, we take any other drug, but people still die even taking them. That is normal with any medication, and nobody can say with a certainty that every drug is 100%. And therefore, I think the appeal is to citizens of Kenya to embrace vaccination. I don't think there is any nation on earth that really would want to give their citizens poison knowingly. I don't think so. I mean, I think and then also this is not only our issue. For those people who love football, you have seen what has actually happened in UK stadiums. Just a few months ago, we had one of the strains that we were told was very, very bad. I think the Delta strain was affecting the entire British economy, and they almost completely locked out the entire country. But because of vaccinations, you can now see the stadiums are full, and I mean full, and people are not even masked, meaning there is the whole issue of acceptability. Of course, there is the issue of, are they giving out there the same that it's coming here? I don't think there is any evidence so far to say that we are getting any lesser vaccination or worse of vaccination that is being applied in the other countries. So it's an appeal to everybody to get vaccination.
Right. Now let's shift the focus to the national insurance policy. Maybe you can just tell our viewer who is watching you right now, what does this insurance policy portends to the industry and the businesses, even as the government is doing everything possible within its purview to strengthen the SMEs?
Thank you. And thank you for bringing that topic. I joined the insurance industry quite a while back, and I don't think we have had really a very well-crafted national insurance policy that details what really has supposed to happen in our sector. And I think that is the whole essence of national insurance policy. For instance, we have really, even since I was in school and you were in school, we have been told that Kenya is an agricultural country. That the focal point of our economy and the largest percentage of the GDP we generated from agriculture. And you can imagine, even with such, we don't have anything guiding the agricultural insurance in this country. And it is still not even, I think, even 2, 3, or 4, 5% of our farmers are not, I mean, something almost 98, 99% of our farmers are not covered. Now, that is what something like the national insurance policy would gear to, and say, where do we really need to go into insurance? We need to have perhaps insurance incorporated in our school curriculum. That is very, very critical. Insurance is like food. It's the only product perhaps that you consume whether you work there or not, because you need a medical cover. When you grow up, you need an education cover. You need a car insurance if you have to drive. You need a personal accident because you can get injured. So anybody, whether you are working, you are growing to work in the insurance industry or not, at some point in time you will interact with insurance, and therefore it needs to be taken to as the lowest level of academics, even if it means our primary school. So the national insurance cover, therefore, wants to guide the whole conversation about insurance and how then we need to engage with insurance. Look at our savings culture. As a nation, we have one of the poorest of our sizes of economy. If you progress like Singapore, Korea, America, and those Eastern Europe countries, they have a very, very high savings culture. What perhaps you'd call things like pensions and savings for the for later age. Now we need the policy to guide even issues of this sort of savings, and where would this money be pulled into. So basically that is what government is trying to come up when they are talking about national insurance policy, so that the whole sector of about insurance has a policy that guides it, so that it is not a free-for-all, so that when you take your tea, your coffee, your cotton or whatever into your collection center, you know perhaps if it's destroyed by fire, there is a cover that is there or something like that, as opposed to where today it depends on the amount of knowledge that you have on any particular field. So we are happy and we are glad that as the Association of Insurance Brokers of Kenya, we have been involved by, as a stakeholder, because we are a major stakeholder in the value chain of insurance.
Right, you can see my director is literally on my case, meaning that we are running out of time, so I'll just give you like 1 minute to walk us through the NHIF amendment bill. What does the implementation of this NHIF amendment bill mean for the insurance sector?
I think national insurance NHIF bill is a very, very pertinent topic for us as an insurance industry. First of all, let me say we have worked together with NHIF, both NHIF and insurance industry, in a very systemized way and in a very organized way, and we have never had a quarrel, because everybody knew their place. We knew for every illness that goes to hospital, what NHIF takes and where it ends and where private cover starts. And therefore that we have worked in a very asymmetric way without any quarrel. However, when the bill now came, it proposed some radical changes into the terrain of insurance. When it came in the raw form, it was first of all supposed to that every person in Kenya must be able to contribute to NHIF. Now, it didn't care whether you have a private sector cover or not. It required you that you must be able to contribute. It also meant something they are calling fast loss, where you must first of all to exhaust your cover, private cover, for you to be able to actually access insurance NHIF cover. What that means is that you are contributing to a scheme where when you fall sick, you cannot, as a first instance, go to it. Because if you have two schemes, then it will be up to you to make a choice of where you want to go to, whether we want to use your private cover or you want to use your NHIF cover. But now, the proposed bill as it is, even after the revision, even after the memorandum that we put into National Assembly, the first loss is still intact. So our challenge with that is that it's going to destroy private medical cover the way we see it. Because if I first of all have to exhaust my cover, so for me to be able to have access to NHIF, it means by next year when I will be renewing, obviously, because it will be expensive. It will be expensive. And again, like I said earlier, we were factoring in the fact that NHIF will take a bit of costs in our premium costing. So I see premium costing going up. And I think that's going to have a very serious impact. So there is real fear within the stakeholders in the private insurance schemes that we might lose our businesses the way we know it. And we all know what happens also with the monopolies, because NHIF then will become a monopoly. And then you can count how many monopolies that have gone south. Because it removes efficiency, it removes competence, it removes competition, and all that goes with it. Right now, an entity, a monopolistic organization like Kenya Power, right now is on their knees. National Sirius, I mean, we were saying the other day they don't have money, and they have nobody they are competing with. We fear a situation whereby NHIF can go that direction. So our prayer, and thankfully that the Senate has called for a stakeholder memorandum, and we'll be making our statements to Senate on what we feel that needs to be changed in that bill. We support the concept and we support the spirit behind it, but I think there are some provisions in that bill that have real challenges with the private providers of health financing.
Yeah, maybe in 30 seconds, just tell us more about the IBK Annual Regional Conference that is slated for next month. In 30 seconds.
Thank you. We have a conference that is coming up in Mombasa. It will be our 15th one, and we'll be dealing particularly now in depth to deal with the pandemic. The issues that we have mentioned here about the issues of health, mental health, and how companies have actually been able to come out of the pandemic and the lessons that I have learned. So we're looking forward to having a very great conversation. And also the conference will be attended by regional insurance practitioners within the East African region. So it's a regional conference that will be held at White Hats, Mombasa, just to delve deeper. And more importantly, this time not from a lecture point of view, but from experience, so that we can all learn from each other. How have they and how are they managing even now to deal with the pandemics and issues of pandemics? Because every organization have dealt it differently. There are those who were able to reduce their staff's salaries to a certain extent. There are those who perhaps decided will dip to our resources. So we will want to hear from various practitioners and various stakeholders, particularly within our own industry, how they have managed to deal with pandemics. So it's going to be a great conference, and it's a 3-day conference, running from 10th to 13th. And as members of the media, you're invited to come and hear the discourse as we engage in Mombasa.
Right. So what's your parting shot as we call it a wrap? That
we very grateful to God that those of us who arrived today, I think there is a cause to celebrate. We have taken life for granted for too long. I think in terms of relationships, in terms of how we relate with each other, I think has come out much more better these days. Just to say, I think let's remain hopeful that things will at some point even out, and we'll pull through even through this pandemic. And I think that's all the lessons that we have learned, particularly on the area of innovative thoughts that have come, even from our young people. We have seen a lot of people coming up with this or that innovative thoughts and ideas. Let's not, after even all things have evened out, let's not discard out those innovative minds. I wish we could be able to have now a center or even a ministry or something that can be able to harness those innovative thoughts and minds that we have seen, particularly from our young generation of people.
Right, that does it for us today. We've been speaking to Mr. Anthony Mwangi, who is the chair of Association of Insurance Brokers Kenya, where we were delving into the matters, the role and the role of insurance companies during the pandemic period. Mr. Anthony Mwangi, thank you so much for your time as well as your insights.
Thank you very much, Lolwe TV. Thank you for this interview. We appreciate it.
Right, until next time, I'm Chris OWINO. On behalf of the entire team, we say thank you so much for your valid company. Bye-bye, and remember to keep safe.
Gor Mahia ene club maradhula maduong' ahinya e Afrika ma ugwe kaendi. Sama Gor gocho piny lich, sama Gor gocho mor ng'eny kendo bao ywaka, sama Gor nie pap Green Army Oil Sedan, sama bao ywaka mor ilo kod nyadhi ni kodwa maratari. Emomiyo koro ochopo sama in bende nyaka koro ichung kod club mari mar Gor Mahia kaka jahera kuom johera milion 2 sani koro osechiwre mar golo $100 kende mar mondo mi koro kony club nendo mar Gor Mahia. Chung kod Gor Mahia sani, or pesa ni e paybill number 40256 aboro, adek. Account number ndik Gor Mahia FC. Okinyal dong chien sama chur timbe dhi nyime. Ndik sigandi e Gor Kae ndik kaka ng'ano endo ma en jahera mar Kogalo. Bed achiel kuom jogo eko ma bende ibro kwane Gor Kae ndi. Or pesa ni sani. Gor Mahia Kogalo, mayiengo piny. Gor Mahia en klab maradhula maduong' ahinya e Afrika ma ugwe kaidi. Sama Gor gocho piny lich, sama Gor gocho mor ng'eny kendo bao ywaka, sama Gor nie pap Green Army Oil Sedan, sama bao ywaka mor ilo kod nyadhi ni kodwa maratari. Emomiyo koro ochopo sama in bende nyaka koro ichung kod klab mari mar Gor Mahia kaka jahera kuom johera milion 2 sani koro osechiwre mar golo siling 100 kende mar mondo mi koro kony klab nendo mar Gor Mahia. Chung kod Gor Mahia sani. Or pesa ni e paybill number 40256 Account number ndik Gor Mahia FC. Okinyal dong chien sama chur timbe dhi nyime. Ndik sigandi e Gor Kae ndik kaka ng'ano endo ma en jahera mar Kogalo. Bed achiel kuom jogo eko ma bende ibro kwane Gor Kae ndi. Or pesa ni sani. Gor Mahia Kogalo, mayiengo piny.
Pak ruoth jo Nyasaye, ma jatich ruoth Brother Wycliffe Oruko, mondo iyud piny ni dong kaka skiza